What a man does when he's truly in love, Carl Jung. In the silent spaces between words, in the fleeting glances that linger a moment too long, lies a language more ancient than speech itself, the unconscious dialogue of authentic desire. When a man truly loves, his soul speaks through 1,000 invisible gestures that most pass by unnoticed, like whispers in a hurricane. This isn't mere attraction. It's the profound awakening of what Carl Jung called the lover archetype, that primordial force that transforms a man from within, rendering him both stronger and more vulnerable than he has ever been. Imagine for a moment a man who cannot stop thinking about you. Your face constantly appears in his mind. Your name resonates in his thoughts throughout the day. Although he tries to hide it, or perhaps he cannot even recognize it, his body, his gestures, and the energy he emanates have already spoken for him. He is completely emotionally involved, but you don't notice it. Why? Because you have been conditioned to look for words and promises, but true masculine desire hides in a silent code, a language that few women manage to decipher. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists in history, discovered something fascinating about the masculine mind. When a man truly loves a woman, his unconscious enters a state that escapes his control, sending involuntary signals that cannot be falsified. The tragedy is that more than 90% of women misinterpret these signals, confusing genuine interest with ephemeral games, or even ignoring a deeply in love man simply because they don't understand the hidden language of masculine desire. Have you ever made sense of that strange intuition, that feeling that something doesn't fit, when a man says he's interested but his actions tell a different story? Or perhaps the opposite has happened to you. He has never expressed his feelings clearly, but deep inside, you know there is a deeper connection. It's not a coincidence or a simple fantasy. It's your unconscious capturing signals that your conscious mind cannot yet process. What I'm going to share with you is not seduction tricks or manipulative techniques. It's something much deeper. I'm going to reveal what happens in a man's mind when he finds a woman who awakens in him something more than physical desire, a connection that goes beyond the rational. There is a pattern, a secret language in his gestures, looks, silences, and attitudes when a man is emotionally involved. And once you learn to read those signals, you will never be deceived or confused about true masculine intentions. The problem is that most women look in the wrong places. They expect grand gestures when they should be paying attention to the small details that reveal everything. Jung discovered that within every man resides the archetype of the lover, a powerful force that, when activated, transforms his behavior in a way he doesn't understand. It's not something that can be faked. It's an instinctive, primitive response rooted in the depths of the masculine unconscious. What I'm going to share today has the power to completely transform the way you perceive men in your life. It will reveal truths that perhaps you've already felt intuitively, but never fully understood. Pay attention, because these signals are subtle but unmistakable. A man may try to hide it, rationalize it, but his body and his actions will always reveal the truth about what he feels. The difference between a man who only seeks physical attraction and one who is emotionally committed is enormous. One disappears at the first difficulty, the other becomes even more present. One keeps you trapped in cycles of doubt and anxiety, the other gives you stability and security. One lives in the moment, the other sees you in his future. These differences manifest through specific behaviors that Jung identified in his studies of the human psyche, behaviors that I'm going to reveal to you today so you never again have to guess what a man feels. What I'm about to share is not found in conventional self-help books or trivial conversations about relationships. It's deep knowledge based on understanding masculine psychology that few people have access to. Are you ready for a revelation that will transform your love life? Have you ever stopped to think why some women seem to naturally attract a man's commitment while others get trapped in superficial and fleeting relationships? The answer is not in their appearance or what they say or do consciously. The key is in something much deeper, the ability to recognize and respond to the unconscious signals that a man emits when he is truly involved. Carl Jung, after years dedicated to the profound study of the human psyche, discovered something revealing about masculine behavior. He observed that it's not determined by consciousness, but by deeper forces that escape the individual's control. For Jung, there are universal patterns of behavior, which he called archetypes, that are primary images inherited from humanity's collective unconscious and that shape our emotions, thoughts, and actions. Among these archetypes, the most powerful in a man's mind is that of the lover. When this archetype is activated, something extraordinary happens within him. It's not just about interest or attraction. It's a deep connection that goes beyond the rational, resonating at much deeper levels. It's as if something primordial and ancestral awakens within him, something that completely transforms his behavior, even without him being fully aware of what is happening. The problem lies in the fact that modern society has taught men to hide their emotions from childhood. They are educated under the motto, "Men don't cry, be strong, don't show weakness." These messages are continuously repeated, creating a barrier between what they feel and what they express. As a consequence, many men, despite being deeply in love, find it difficult to verbalize their feelings. However, Jung discovered something fascinating. The body never lies. While the conscious mind can censor and control words, the unconscious manifests through physical and behavioral signals that are practically impossible to falsify. It is in the silent language of the body and actions where the true secret is found, and very few women manage to correctly interpret these signals. Imagine you meet a man who seems to send you contradictory signals. Maybe he tells you he's interested but distances himself for days, or maybe he never talks about his feelings but is always by your side when you need him most. Which of these two is emotionally committed? Words can be deceptive, but actions are always the true revelation. There is a biological and psychological basis that explains this phenomenon. Recent neuroscience studies have confirmed what Jung already intuited. When a man is genuinely in love, his brain releases a unique combination of neurotransmitters, such as dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, that directly impact his behavior and create patterns he cannot consciously control. Dopamine, for example, is associated with the sensation of reward and pleasure. When a man is emotionally involved, his brain links your presence to this substance, generating an almost addictive need to be near you. This is not a rational decision, but a chemical response that drives him to seek your company even when other priorities call him. Oxytocin, known as the bonding hormone, is released during moments of physical and emotional connection. This neurotransmitter creates a biological bond, making the man feel the instinctive need to protect you, care for you, and stay close. It's no coincidence that a genuinely committed man shows protective behaviors. It's his biology responding to that deep emotional bond. The question is, how can you differentiate between a man who only seeks physical attraction and one who is emotionally committed? How do you separate those who only say what you want to hear from those who feel something profound? Jung developed the concept of synchronicity, those significant coincidences that, although they seem to be connected, are not for obvious reasons. When a man is truly connected to you, these synchronicities begin to happen. He calls you just when you are thinking about him. You discover surprising connections in your lives, as if there were an invisible force synchronizing your worlds. Unfortunately, many women ignore these subtle signals, focusing only on the obvious, expecting grand declarations of love or public demonstrations of affection, when in reality, true masculine commitment is revealed in the small gestures of everyday life, in almost imperceptible decisions, in glances that last a second longer than normal. Imagine that in a group conversation you casually mention a book you read years ago, and that man who seems distant, who hasn't expressed much, suddenly looks at you with an intensity you can't explain. That's the kind of gesture that reveals his true interest, a small but deeply significant signal. Weeks later, in a casual conversation, he mentions the book you had talked about long ago. This is not a simple coincidence. It's a clear sign that your words have left an imprint on his mind, that you occupy an important place in his thoughts. Jung would call it psychic presence, when someone is so present in our mind that even in their absence, their influence remains palpable. The big mistake many women make is confusing sexual attraction with a deep emotional connection. Physical attraction is instantaneous, an impulsive response based on chemistry and appearance. However, the emotional bond is built slowly and gradually, layer by layer, revealing itself in consistent behavior patterns that often go unnoticed. A man can feel desire for several women at the same time, but when he is truly emotionally involved with one, his focus drastically changes. He begins to see her not only as a source of physical pleasure, but as a fundamental part of his life, his future, his own identity. It's a profound transformation that affects even the smallest decisions, those that at first glance have no relation to the relationship. Jung believed that each person carries in their unconscious an idealized image of their partner, what he called the anima in men and the animus in women. When a man meets someone who reflects that image of his anima, something powerful happens within him. He feels complete, as if he had found the piece that was missing, that part of himself he had been looking for. This connection does not depend on physical attraction or social compatibility. It's something that resonates deeply at the soul level. The fascinating thing about this connection is that it doesn't need to be verbalized to be real. Many men experience such a deep connection that words seem insufficient to express it. That's why they resort to actions, gestures, and nonverbal language that communicates directly with their unconscious. Here, the big question arises: what are those specific behaviors? How can we identify those clear signals that reveal true emotional involvement? What does a man do when he is completely in love, beyond what he expresses with his words? There are patterns, sequences of behaviors that Jung identified in his studies about love and desire, universal behaviors that transcend cultures and epochs. They are deeply rooted in the masculine collective unconscious and are signals that cannot be falsified because they emerge from the deepest layers of the psyche. These behaviors are divided into three main categories, which I will reveal below. They are actions that indicate not only a momentary interest or superficial attraction, but a genuine emotional involvement with the potential to last and deepen over time. The most surprising thing is that many men are not fully aware of these behaviors. They act driven by internal forces that they do not fully understand. It's as if something inside them guides them to behave in certain ways when they find that special woman who activates their lover archetype. This is the key moment of this revelation. Now I will share the definitive signs that indicate when a man is truly in love, based on Carl Jung's studies of the masculine unconscious. These are not behaviors easy to imitate or maintain by someone who doesn't feel a genuine connection. They are involuntary manifestations of the unconscious that expose what is happening in the deepest layers of the masculine mind. The first and most potent sign is in his eyes. Jung discovered that the eyes are the window to the soul, and when a man is emotionally involved, his way of looking at you changes radically. It's not just a look of desire, although that may also be present. It's a look of deep recognition, as if he could see beyond your physical appearance, connecting with your essence. Modern science has confirmed what Jung already suspected. When we are in front of someone with whom we feel a deep connection, our pupils involuntarily dilate. This reflex, controlled by the autonomic nervous system, is completely impossible to fake. A man can say whatever he wants with words, but his eyes will always reveal the truth. He will maintain eye contact for longer than normal, as if trying to memorize every detail of your face. Even in an environment full of people, his eyes will always seek yours, like a compass that doesn't lose its direction. Most revealing is when he observes you without him realizing you're noticing. Perhaps you catch him looking at you when he thinks you don't see, observing how you interact with other people, how you smile, how you move. It's not an invasive or uncomfortable look, it's a look of genuine fascination, as if each of your movements were a work of art he can't stop admiring. The second sign lies in how he handles his time and space. Jung discovered that when we are emotionally connected to someone, we unconsciously reorganize our lives to include that person. A truly committed man does this naturally, without being fully aware of how revealing this behavior is. He begins to create space in his life for you, not out of obligation, but from an internal need. He adjusts his schedule, modifies plans, and reorganizes priorities, all to be present when you need him, or simply to spend more time together. He doesn't disappear for days without explanation. He's not too busy to respond to your messages. He doesn't cancel plans at the last minute without a genuine reason. Even more significant is how he manages his physical space. Jung observed that we tend to reduce physical distance with people with whom we feel a deep connection. An emotionally involved man will be attracted to your personal space almost magnetically. His body will naturally orient toward you. During group conversations, even his feet will point toward you, seeking subtle ways to reduce the distance between you, not in an invasive way, but as if there were an invisible force attracting him to you. Also, observe how he reacts to your touch, even if it's casual, like a touch on the arm or a greeting hug. Those fleeting moments reveal much more than they seem. Neuroscience studies have shown that touch between two emotionally connected people releases oxytocin at much higher levels than between strangers. This chemical response is completely involuntary and is expressed through subtle signals: pupil dilation, a slight blush on the skin, changes in breathing, and increased body temperature. They are almost imperceptible details, but they reveal a much deeper truth than words could ever express. The third sign, and possibly the most powerful, is selective memory. Jung discovered that our unconscious continuously filters information, retaining only what it considers significant. An emotionally involved man develops an almost photographic memory for details that connect him to you, details that other people wouldn't even notice or would quickly forget. He remembers conversations you had weeks ago. He remembers small preferences you mentioned casually. He notices when you change something in your appearance, a new haircut, a different garment. These are not memories he consciously strives to memorize. His brain registers them automatically because they have become a priority in his mental processing system. This phenomenon becomes even more revealing when he mentions something you said in the past that even you had forgotten. Perhaps a dream you shared, a fear you confided, or a childhood memory you briefly mentioned. When this happens, it's not because he wants to impress you, but because that information has fixed itself in his mind, occupying a privileged place in his memory. The fourth, equally revealing sign is emotional vulnerability. Jung believed that the true encounter between two people only occurs when both lower their defenses and show who they are. Men are conditioned from a young age to hide their emotions, to show a facade of unshakable strength. When a man begins to share his insecurities, fears, dreams, and failures with you, he is doing something extraordinarily rare. He is lowering the wall that protects him from the world. This vulnerability does not necessarily manifest in great emotional confessions. It can appear in subtle moments when he shares a concern about work, when he reveals a dream he had never told anyone, or when he lets you see a part of him that he normally keeps hidden from others. It's as if, without using words, he were saying to you, "I trust you enough to show you who I am." The fifth sign is found in how he integrates you into his social circle. Jung observed that we incorporate people with whom we feel a deep connection into our identity. A truly involved man wants you to be part of all aspects of his life, not just intimate moments alone. He introduces you to his closest friends, talks about you with his family, includes you in important celebrations, family traditions, and meetings with significant people in his life. He doesn't hide your existence from anyone important to him. On the contrary, he talks about you with an almost palpable pride, as if your presence in his life were a valuable achievement he wants to share with the world. The sixth revealing sign is how he projects the future. Jung discovered that our perception of time is deeply influenced by emotional bonds. An emotionally committed man naturally begins to visualize a future in which you are an integral part. Even if you are still in the initial stages of the relationship, he talks about long-term plans that naturally include your presence. He mentions future trips, events that will occur in months, as if it were evident that you will be together in those moments. It's not pressure or imposition. It's a natural inclusion, as if the idea of a future without you wouldn't even cross his mind. Even more revealing is when he talks about his life projects, his dreams and ambitions, and you realize that somehow he has already included you in that panorama. Perhaps he mentions what the ideal house for both of you would be like, or how he would like to show you his hometown someday. These are not empty promises or manipulations. They are genuine glimpses of how he already sees you as part of his life trajectory. The seventh sign that Jung identified as one of the most powerful is the instinct for protection. It's not about control or possessiveness, but a genuine care for your well-being, both physical and emotional. This behavior is deeply rooted in the masculine unconscious and manifests in surprisingly subtle ways. A man who is emotionally involved demonstrates authentic concern when you face difficulties, offering his help not to show off or gain points, but because he genuinely cannot bear to see you suffer. He is attentive to changes in your mood, noticing when something is not right even before you mention it. He anticipates your needs, not out of obligation, but because your well-being has become a priority within his value system. Jung explained that this protective behavior arises from what he called the guardian complex, a psychic structure that is activated when we find someone we consider valuable and irreplaceable. It's not something a man consciously decides to do, it's an automatic response from his unconscious when he recognizes in you someone who awakens his deepest instinct of care and protection. The eighth sign, and perhaps the most revealing, is consistency over time. Jung observed that we can fake almost any behavior for a short period, but our true self inevitably emerges over time. A man can simulate interest, attention, and care for a few weeks or even months, but if there is no genuine emotional connection, eventually the mask will fall. A truly involved man maintains the same energy, the same interest, and the same attention consistently. There are no typical cycles of approaching and distancing that characterize superficial relationships. He doesn't appear with intensity for 2 weeks and then disappears for days without explanation. His behavior is consistent, reliable, and predictable, not for being monotonous, but for being authentic. Now that you know these revealing signs of a truly in-love man, based on Carl Jung's studies, it's time to reflect on what this means directly for your life. This knowledge is not just theoretical. It has the power to completely transform the way you relate, the decisions you make, and how you interpret masculine behaviors around you. If you have a man in your life who consistently demonstrates these 8 signs I just shared, understand that this is something extraordinarily rare. Many people go their entire lives without experiencing such a deep connection. What you have in your hands is a bond that transcends physical attraction or superficial compatibility. It's a resonance at the soul level, a meeting of unconscious minds that Jung would describe as a true finding. On the other hand, if you're involved with someone who doesn't show these signs or demonstrates them inconsistently, it's time for an honest reflection. I'm not suggesting you end the relationship immediately, but that you understand the fundamental difference between a passing interest and a true emotional involvement. Many women waste precious years of their lives waiting for a man who only feels superficial attraction to develop a deeper connection. Jung teaches us that true love doesn't need to be forced. It manifests naturally when there is real compatibility. And you may be wondering, what if he shows some signs but not all? Jung believed that true love is a holistic phenomenon that affects all aspects of behavior. However, each person expresses their emotions uniquely. The most important thing is consistency over time and the authenticity of the demonstrations. A single genuine gesture is worth more than 1,000 empty words or fabricated behaviors. Now, look at your own life. How many times did you ignore your intuition about a man's true feelings because he said the right words? How many times did you let yourself be carried away by promises that weren't backed by concrete actions? The knowledge I shared today allows you to never again be deceived by empty words or by the hope that he will eventually become emotionally involved. The truth that Jung discovered and that I'm sharing with you now is that a truly in-love man doesn't need to be convinced to be present, to be reliable, or to demonstrate that he cares. He does it naturally, driven by unconscious forces much more powerful than his rational will. If you find yourself needing to beg for attention, establish rules or ultimatums, or constantly question his feelings, that is already a sign that the deep emotional connection is simply not present. However, this knowledge also carries a great responsibility. If you identify these signs in a man, you must respond with equivalent authenticity. Jung believed that true relationships are a dance between two people who completely show themselves to each other. If a man is demonstrating vulnerability, openness, and genuine commitment, but you maintain emotional barriers out of fear or past experiences, that invaluable connection can be lost. There is something deeply liberating in knowing how to read these signs correctly. You will never again need to question whether you are correctly interpreting a man's feelings. You will never again have to depend solely on words or promises. You will develop unshakable confidence in your ability to discern between superficial interest and true love. This understanding eliminates power games and manipulations in relationships. When you manage to recognize a genuinely involved man, there is no need to test his feelings, provoke jealousy, or use tactics to maintain his interest. You can simply be yourself, knowing that the connection is real and that you don't need tricks or strategies to maintain it. Furthermore, this knowledge protects your heart. Imagine how many disappointments and broken hearts could have been avoided if all women knew how to identify these signs from the beginning. How much time and emotional energy is wasted in relationships that never had the potential to become something deep and lasting? Jung believed that finding someone with whom we have a genuine connection is one of the most transformative experiences of human life. It's not just about romance or companionship. It's about personal growth, spiritual evolution, and the realization of our highest potential. When a man demonstrates these 8 signs, he is not just saying he loves you. He is offering you the opportunity for a journey of self-discovery, knowledge, and mutual transformation. As we arrive at the threshold of understanding, consider this. What we've explored is not merely a collection of behavioral patterns, but a glimpse into the sacred architecture of human connection. Jung once wrote that the meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This transformation, this alchemy of souls, is perhaps life's most profound mystery and its greatest gift. The 8 signs we've discovered are not merely tools for deciphering another's heart, but mirrors reflecting our capacity for authentic connection. When you recognize these patterns, you're not simply seeing behavior, you're witnessing the unconscious orchestration of a dance as old as humanity itself. The vulnerable, powerful choreography of a soul reaching toward what it recognizes as home. Remember that in a world increasingly dominated by the superficial and immediate, the ability to read the deeper currents of human emotion is both rare and revolutionary. It is an act of profound rebellion against a culture that has forgotten how to see beyond surfaces. To truly witness another's silent language of love is to participate in an ancient wisdom that transcends our modern confusion about connection. Perhaps the greatest revelation is not that these signals exist, but that when recognized and honored, they create a resonance between 2 people that transforms both in ways neither could achieve alone. This is not merely romance. It is the awakening of consciousness through the miracle of a genuine human bond. So, look again at the relationships in your life with these new eyes. What silent symphonies have you been missing? What wordless declarations have gone unheard? And most importantly, when these authentic signals appear, will you have the courage to respond, not with games or strategies, but with the authentic truth of your being? For in the end, to be truly seen and truly known is the deepest hunger of the human heart, and in that recognition lies not just the secret to understanding love, but the very foundation upon which profound and lasting love is built.